Okay, we're continuing our talk about vascular connective tissues. And the next two, we're going to do two at the same time, is irregular dense connective tissue and regular dense connective tissue. Now, before I get into it, I just want to review something. And I'm going to look at the loose areolar connective tissue because what we're going to find is that this tissue and the ones that are following are going to sort of focus on the different fibers that we find in loose connective tissue. And so right here, here's this image. And you'll recall that in it, I've got these collagen fibrils that the fibroblasts made. And so when I'm dealing with a dense connective tissue, it's going to be densely packed with collagen fibrils. And what I note is that the collagen fibrils can be either regularly arranged, all going in the same direction, or they can weave in and out all through, back and forth, in a very irregular sort of a way. And then I would call it irregular dense connective tissue. But in all cases, you can see right here, there's a large collagen fibril, and then another large collagen fibril, and then some more collagen fibrils, and stuck between them are the nuclei, you can see, of the fibroblasts. The fibroblasts maintain the collagen fibrils. Now in this particular case, these red fibers, these are the collagen fibrils, and they're all very long, but what happens when we're preparing this tissue to look under a microscope, we'll have a block of tissue that we're preparing, and then we're going to have a very thin, we have this machine that we're going to take very thin slices of the tissue. You know, the way to sort of visualize this is if you go to the deli department and you want them to slice up some cheese or ham or chicken or whatever, what they'll do is they'll just run the block of meat through the machine that has that wheel that's turning, and you just get slice, 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 and all those slices are, they're very, very thin. And then, of course, the person buying there asks you, do you want to have a taste? And you might not. But that's what happens here, is that when we're preparing these, we're going slice, 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 slice. And so sometimes the fibrils, the blade is going to go through a long fibril. And then I'm going to see it as long. But other times, such as right in here, the blade is just going to cut through a fibril. And so this fibril can be really, really long, but I'm just cutting through it because it's heading towards me and heading away from me. I hope that makes sense. So right here, you can sort of see here's the blade cut through, a fibril, and then right here it, through it lengthwise, and then right here it just sort of cut it in half. This one's probably heading towards us and away from us. And then other times it's just sort of coming in and out at sort of an oblique angle. And so when you see something like that, it's probably more of an oblique passage. So what happens is that these collagen fibrils, they're weaving in and out, and they're making sort of a three-dimensional collagen mesh. Now, you'll recall that collagen is strong. And so when I'm dealing with regular dense connective tissue, it's really strong in the direction that the fibrils are going. I would say its function is a bidirectional strength. Where you would find this are in your tendons or ligaments. Sometimes we may have some very broad, flat tendons. And when you have one of those, we have a special name for that tendon. We would call it an aponeurosis. An aponeurosis is just a broad, flat tendon. Right here, where I have the collagen fibrils sort of weaving in and out all around, I note that this tissue is strong this way, this way, this way, this way. It has a multi-directional strength. Where you find irregular dense connective tissue is number one in the dermis of your skin. It's noteworthy if you take your skin and you try to rip it in one direction, and I don't suggest that you do this, but let's say you tried it, and you can put a lot of force in one direction or another direction. What we find is that the skin is strong in all directions. And the reason that the skin is so strong is because in the dermis there is a significant amount of irregular dense connective tissue. This is very likely from the dermis. Okay? And if you do pull the skin enough to rip it, you will have a very nasty tear. Okay? Because this collagen is so strong. Another place where you find irregular dense connective tissue is around organs. And so what we have is when you're dealing with organs such as the liver, the pancreas, lymph nodes, whatever, inside the organs, it's usually very soft. And so what I need to do is I need to sort of cover the organ, or I need to encapsulate it. And I think that's probably the best word, is to encapsulate it. What we encapsulate organs with is with an irregular, dense connective tissue, and it's strong in all different directions. So, for example, your gallbladder is encapsulated with irregular, dense connective tissue. Lymph nodes are encapsulated with irregular, dense connective tissue. The spleen is encapsulated with irregular, dense connective tissue. Arteries and veins are encapsulated with irregular, dense connective tissue. Your large intestine, small intestine, and your stomach is encapsulated with irregular, dense connective tissue. You name the organ, it is encapsulated with an irregular, dense connective tissue, with very few exceptions. There are a few, but probably any organ that you would mention right now is encapsulated with irregular, dense connective tissue. If you were to go to the body part section at your local supermarket and you buy some kidneys, which you could do, and you want to make some kidney pie at home, and so you put the kidneys now on the cutting board, you take your knife, and what you would find is that as the first thing you want to try to do is you have to cut through this outer membrane, or this outer, it's actually a capsule of irregular, dense connective tissue. And then once you get into that kidney, then you got the little kidney tubules of that simple cuboidal epithelium. You can sort of scoop them out like a ripe cantaloupe. And so again, irregular dense connective tissue, you find it in the dermis of your skin. Now if I ask you, don't say skin, it's the dermis of the skin. And we also find it encapsulating organs. Remember, everybody, as you study this, I can't emphasize enough, always be looking at pictures. When you deal with the information, the first thing that should come to mind is the picture followed by the information, not vice versa. If you do that, it will help you. Okay, so here's a really good example of irregular dense connective tissue. By the way, when they cut this, the knife was obviously not sharp. You can see some markings here, and that blade should have been sharpened. But nevertheless, you can see all these collagen fibrils all going in the same direction. This is a good example, an excellent example of regular dense connective tissue that I would find in tendons, ligaments, and aponeuroses. Right here, here's your skin, here's your epidermis. That would be your keratinized stratified squamous epithelia. Okay, we dealt with that one. And then right in here is the dermis. There is a lot of irregular dense connective tissue in the dermis, and the collagen fibrils, they're calling them fiber bundles. A fiber bundle is a fibril. But the collagen fibrils are weaving in and out all around, giving us a multi-directional strength. Note in the subcutaneous layer, I have adipose connective tissue here. Okay, we dealt with that. And that has that insulates us. And so I'll just mention it, during hypothermia, the superficial vasculature will vasoconstrict, keeping the hot blood deep in the body and protected from losing heat because of this adipose connective tissue. Here's a really neat image of your skin, and so right here's the basement membrane, and here I have my keratinized stratified squamous epithelia. You can see this blanket of keratin up here, and then right down here is in my dermis. And you can see all of the stuff that's sort of weaving in and out. All that's that irregular, dense connective tissue that is giving a significant strength to the skin. Its function is a multi-directional strength. Okay, so know your irregular, dense connective tissue. So there's your irregular, dense connective tissue. Here's regular, dense connective tissue. The functional cell is the fibroblast that makes the fibers in all cases. It is vascular. You'll see a really neat image on the image bank that I have online. I'll point it out to you when we go through that stuff. And in this case, it gives us a multi-directional strength, tendons, ligaments, and aponeuroses. Okay, I think that's good.